Where Russia assaulted, what it achieved, and how Ukraine responded, March 9 to March 14, 2026. We are summarizing the combat situation for the period reflected in the official Ukrainian morning reports released from March 9 to March 14, 2026. In the language of military analytics, the defining characteristic of this stretch was a sustained, high tempo of Russian assault operations, with no signs of an operational pause. Across 6 daily summary reports from the General Staff, 832 combat engagements were recorded on the front. Daily figures fluctuated between 128 and 154 battles, meaning the enemy attempted to maintain an intensive offensive rhythm simultaneously across several operational tactical directions, almost every day. If we break down this pressure by sectors of responsibility, the primary areas of Russian effort were the Konstantynivka, Pokrovsk, and Huliaipole sectors. It was here that the enemy attempted not just to press along the front, but to create conditions for a tactical wedge into the Ukrainian defense by attacking defensive hubs, logistically vital approaches, and settlements that form the backbone of the defensive framework. In the report for March 13th, the General Staff explicitly stated that Russian forces concentrated their main efforts on the Huliaipole, Konstantinivka, and Pokrovsk sectors, while the March 14th report identified the Konstantinivka sector as the most active. In the Konstantinivka sector, Russian actions were concentrated on the arc of Pleshchivka, Ivano-Pilia, Ilinivka, Sofiivka, Rusin Yar, Novopavlivka, as well as directly in the vicinity of Konstantinivka itself. Over various days in this period, the General Staff recorded between 13 and 29 attacks per day. This indicates an enemy attempt to destabilize the Ukrainian defense on the approaches to one of the key defensive hubs in the Donetsk region, force a battle for advantageous lines, and gradually expand a tactical salient toward the city. In other words, this is not a single breakthrough strike, but a methodical attempt to grind down the defensive line through a series of assaults across a belt of several adjacent settlements. In the Pokrovsk sector, Russian activity unfolded in the area of the Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration and its approaches. Daily reports mention Mirnograd, Rodinske, Pokrovsk, Kotline, Udachne, Hryshyne, Novopidhorodne, Novomykolaivka, Shachover, Chervony Liman, Nikanorivka, as well as directions toward Bilitske, Novo-Oleksandrivka, and Kucherev Yar. These are no longer just isolated points on a map, but an entire belt of settlements through which the enemy is trying to advance toward the urban agglomeration, disrupt the Ukrainian tactical formation, and threaten communications. This is why this sector remains one of the most sensitive. Battles here are fought not only for tree lines and fields, but for the approaches to denser urban areas and transport hubs. In the Huliaipole sector, the intensity of combat also remained very high. Reports regularly mention Huliaipole, Huliapilske, Mirne, Zaliznichne, Oleno-Konstantinivka, Varvarivka, Zelene, Lugovske, Hirke, Sviatopetrivka, and Staroukrainka. According to official reports, between 19 and 28 attacks occurred here daily. From a military perspective, this suggests an enemy attempt to pressure the Zaporizhzhia section of the front, not only with fires, but with assault groups, searching for weak points between Ukrainian strongholds. Crucially, this sector is linked to the Oleksandrivka sector and the southern flank as a whole. Therefore, any escalation here has broader operational significance rather than just local impact. On other sections of the front, fighting continued, but Russian activity was less intense. In the Slavyansk sector, combat was recorded in the areas of Zakitne, Platonivka, Hryshyne, Oleksandrivka, Yampil, and Dronivka. In the Lyman sector, in the areas of Drobyshevo, Stavki, Liman, and Cherneshchina. In the Kupiansk sector, near Petropavlivka, Novoplatonivka, and Podoli. In the southern Slobozhanshina sector, the enemy tried to apply pressure in the areas of Volchansk, Prilipka, Pupivka, Liman, and Zibine. Effectively, the Russian command kept almost the entire active front line under tension, but concentrated the bulk of its assault efforts on the three aforementioned sectors. Shifting from the geography of battle to the cost for the enemy, according to the 6 morning reports published from March 9 to March 14, Russian personnel losses, as estimated by the General Staff of Ukraine, totaled 5,140 servicemen. The daily breakdown was 750, 950, 990, 780, 860, and 810, respectively. During this same period, Ukraine claimed the destruction or disabling of at least 35 tanks, 55 armored fighting vehicles, 362 artillery systems, 13 MLRS, 10 air defense systems, 1,302 units of motor vehicles and fuel tankers, and 5 units of special equipment. This is significant beyond mere statistics. Such loss dynamics meant that the Russian offensive tempo was maintained at the cost of serious attrition of personnel and firepower. The nature of Russian operations deserves separate mention. This was not a pure infantry wave, but a combined attrition scheme, massed ground assaults supported by aviation, guided aerial bombs, kamikaze drones, and dense artillery fire. For instance, the March 14th report alone, summarizing the fighting on the 13th, mentioned 104 airstrikes, 307 guided bombs, over 10,000 kamikaze drones, and 3,623 shellings. In previous days, the intensity was comparable: dozens of airstrikes, hundreds of cab bombs, and thousands of drones. This explains why the front line during this period resembled a zone of continuous fire pressure rather than just a series of infantry charges.
At the same time, the Ukrainian response during this period appeared professional and systemic. First, active defense, not just holding lines, but regular fire strikes on Russian concentration areas, artillery, warehouses, and UAV control points. On various days, the General Staff reported strikes on manpower and equipment concentrations, command posts, ammunition depots, command and observation posts, drone control centers, and enemy artillery systems. Second, Ukrainian actions showed signs of a struggle for the initiative rather than just survival under pressure. This is most evident in the Oleksandrivka sector. On March 9th, Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky stated that during a counter-offensive operation in this area, Ukrainian paratroopers regained control of 285.6 square kilometers in a month, and over 400 square kilometers since the start of the operation. In military terms, this means that even under conditions of enemy numerical superiority, the Ukrainian side is capable of not only stabilizing the front, but also conducting offensive operations in specific sectors, forcing the Russians to redeploy reserves and patch up their defenses. A second important marker is Hryshyne in the Pokrovsk sector. On March 14th, the Ukrainian Air Assault Forces reported that units in the area of responsibility of the 7th Air Assault Corps are holding designated lines and conducting active search and strike operations within the settlement itself. Specifically, soldiers of the 425th Regiment, together with the 155th Separate Mechanized Brigade, are clearing the central part of Hryshyne. This is a very specific military indicator.
If the central part is being cleared, it means the enemy is not just being contained on the outskirts, but is being pushed out of the built-up area, thwarting their attempt to gain a foothold and expand a bridgehead for further pressure on the agglomeration. The third component of Ukrainian success is deep fire strikes against the enemy's rear. During this period, Ukraine did not limit itself to frontline defense. On March 10th, Reuters reported a strike on the Silicon L plant in the Bryansk region, an enterprise linked to the production of electronics for Russian missiles. On March 14th, the General Staff of Ukraine also confirmed strikes on the Afipsky oil refinery and the infrastructure of Port Kavkaz, and also reported hits on Russian troops and logistics in occupied territories. Notably, after a strike on an ammunition depot near Shiroka Balka, the destruction of 5 units of equipment was additionally confirmed. In professional military logic, this means one simple thing. Ukraine worked not only against assault groups on the front line, but against the supply chain that feeds this offensive tempo. Therefore, the main conclusion for this period is as follows. Russia attempted to develop an offensive simultaneously in several sectors of the front, primarily the Konstantynivka, Pokrovsk, and Huliaipole directions, operating through continuous assault pressure and massed fires. However, across 6 official Ukrainian daily summaries, there are no signs of a major operational breakthrough. Instead, a different picture emerges. Costly assaults for Russia, high losses in personnel and artillery, local Ukrainian counter-actions, such as the battles for Hryshyne and the Oleksandrivka sector, and strikes deep into Russian military infrastructure. This is what the front looks like today through a professional military lens rather than a propagandistic one. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Stay on the side of good. Glory to Ukraine.